That, my friends, is a giant pile of boxes. And before you ask, this is not normal. I recently got into figure collecting this year, and I've been trying to play catch up with everyone else. Honestly though, I'm just trying to cure my addiction of collecting manga. And to cure that addiction, I built myself some display cases. Because you can't put manga in display cases. So let's get back to the problem. I have 12 boxes. Let's count them out. And these 12 boxes should have 12 scale figures. But these boxes will not open themselves, so let's grab the first box and get going. As you can see right off the bat, this is the famous Solaris Japan tape. AmiAmi may have its fancy boxes, but you know your package came from Solaris when you have this heavy duty tape. Now the moment you've been waiting for. It's time to open the first box. Whoa, hold on a second. Why don't we make this fun? I already know what's in the box, or should know what's in the box, so let's play a game. I'm going to list off 3 clues about this figure, and if you want, you can guess it. Now there's no prizes at the end, but I'll give you a virtual high five if you play along. And after all is said and done, you can tell me whether you got them all right, or you can tell me which ones gave you trouble. So here are the clues to the first figure. Clue number 1, this figure recently had a re-release in October 2021. Clue number 2, this figure has an android, a Figma, a pop-up parade, a scale, and even a bunny figure. And clue number 3, this character once said to the main protagonist, "I am your sword, no matter how rough the path, I will follow you." So let's see what we got. Well, if you haven't figured it out by now, it's Raphtalia from Rising of a Shield Hero. So let's take a moment to open her up and put her all together. For my 30-second review of her, she is amazing. Not going into all the details because that will take forever, but her sculpt is spot on with a lot of detail. The only reason that I took half a point off was her leg doesn't sit flush with her underwear, which left a sloppy gap. Not that you'll be looking at her underwear, but it's definitely one of those OCD things. The paint is perfect for both the base and the figure. It has a nice matte finished look with great shading. The colors are exactly how I expect them to be. The action pose is perfect. What can I say? And the base, oh my god, the base. It's one of the best bases to date. From the grass to the rock, to even the balloon monster, it's top notch. I'm so glad that they took the time to sculpt this base. As for my personal opinion, she's definitely 10 out of 10. Every figure collector should seriously be adding this figure to their collection. Also note, these ratings are totally made up by me and don't actually mean anything. Everyone has a different opinion on how great a figure is, so something I like or don't like really shouldn't impact your buying decision on a figure. But seriously, buy this figure. Moving on to the next figure, I'm going to give you 3 more clues and let's see if you can guess it. Here are the clues. Clue number 1, this figure also had a re-release in October 2021. Clue number 2, this figure has 2 versions, a basic version of the figure and a version that allows you to remove clothing and has additional accessories. Clue number 3, this character is a battle android who's trying to retake Earth with her pod companion. So what do we got? Well, if you haven't figured it out, it's 2B from the game Nier Automata. I'm going to open her up, put her together, and give you my final verdict. Giving you my review, touching her sculpt, it's great. Very clean, exactly what I would have wanted. She's a bit taller than expected, but that being said, she's not exactly a scale figure. Her paint is good, but I found it a bit glossy on the hair. Her dress is black, just black, nothing wrong with it, but I just wish it had a bit more detail with the paint. Her pose is exactly what I wanted, standing tall and powerful. Her base works for the figure, simple, plain, and with a nice matte finish, and a decent size. Overall, this is a very good figure. That being said, I only get the basic version. The deluxe version allows me to customize her a bit more, and I might have rated her higher if I had that version. Next figure. I guess there's 2 of them. Well, the next 2 figures come from the same series, so let's start with the first one. Here are the clues to the first figure. Clue number 1, this figure stands on a sand-like base with 1 accessory. Clue number 2, if this character was represented by a tarot card, they'd be represented by the Lover's card. And clue number 3, while wearing this outfit, this character says in the video game, they can steal treasures, but they don't seem like they can steal a girl's heart at all. Who is this? As you can see, it's Anne Takamaki from the game Persona 5. Let's take her out and put her together, shall we? Here's my review of Anne. She's perfect as a swimsuit figure. Her sculpt is spot on, though it's hard to really mess this one up. Her paint is as expected, and the colors are good. I love her pose, as well as what they did with her hair. The base is great. The only negative thing is the peg. It holds her up just fine, but it isn't always secure, especially when you pick her up by the leg. You have to make sure that you hold onto the base as you carry her. Personally, I think this figure is amazing, and it's a must-buy if you're an Anne fan. Also, if you haven't played Persona 5 Royal yet, go do it. You'll thank me later. This next box, I got this figure used on eBay, and as I said before, it's from the same series as my Anne figure, so this figure should be pretty easy to guess, given the previous figure. So here are the clues. Clue number 1, this figure comes with another character from the same game. Clue number 2, this character collects figures herself, and has a figure of Catherine from the game Catherine in her bedroom. And clue number 3, this character is also known as a hermit. Who is this figure? Well, you probably guessed it, it's Futaba from Persona 5. Let's take her out, inspect her for damages, and give you my thoughts. Aside from some minor scuffs on her base, she's in great condition. As for the figure, they did a great job matching this figure to the source material. Even the headphones were so well detailed, and I love how the fur looks on the coat. The paint is perfect, nothing more to add. And for the pose, well, it matches the source material, so in my books, it's perfect. Overall, my personal opinion of her is she's great. I love that you have the option of swapping between her jacket and holding Morgana. The only thing that I wish they included was a standing Morgana. So when you had her jacket on, Morgana could be standing next to her, looking up or something. Overall, I think this is a great figure, a must-have for Persona 5 fans. Jumping on to the next box was inspected by US Customs. So who could this figure be? Here are the clues. Clue number 1, this figure has a mixed base, where the figure is standing on a stone-like platform, and the rest is a standard plastic square base. Clue number 2, this figure is half Britannian, half Japanese, though prefers to be considered Japanese. And clue number 3, this character pilots the Gurren Mark II. So who is this? Well, as you can see, it's Kallen Kazuki from the anime series Code Geass. Let's get her out and give her a look over. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. First off, her boobs. I never actually thought I would start here, but her boobs, they're great. But the right boob and the left boob seem off to me. Her left boob seems round, while the right boob is narrow and high, and it's kind of throwing me off. Maybe I'm crazy, but it just doesn't seem right with the given pose. As for the rest of the sculpt, I love it. It's really well done. The matte, the metallic, and the glossy paint work really well together, and I love the pose. As for the base, let's just say it's 50% good and 50% sucks. I'm not a fan of the red plastic base, after you already have her standing on the stone base. I'd rather the whole thing just be full stone. As for my personal thoughts, I really like this figure. Aside from the fact that she's a little bit smaller compared to my other figures, I just wish she was a little bit bigger. Overall, Code Geass is an amazing series, and this figure's pretty good too. This box also came from eBay and is secondhand. So here are the clues before I open it up. Clue number 1, this figure's base is a pile of stone with an oversized halberd through it. Clue number 2, this character is a demigoddess of darkness, war, violence, and death. And clue number 3, this character happens to be a 965-year-old Lolita. So who is it? Well, obviously it's Rory Mercury from the Gate series. It's the only series that makes you want to join the Japanese military. So let's open her up, inspect her, and give you my thoughts. Overall, the figure's in good condition. There's a minor scuff on her elbow, but I'll see if I can magic erase her of that later. As for the sculpt, it is amazing, enough said. For the paint, it's very good. The cross stitch in the front of her dress could have been a bit more clean, and I'm still debating whether or not I like the maroon color red, or if I prefer a brighter color red on the dress. I've seen some commercial photos where the red was very bright, but I'm not sure if that's Photoshop, or just the lighting, or from a previous release. Overall, it's a very good paint job. The pose is amazing, and the base is amazing, especially with the halberd cutting through it. This is what Callan's base should have looked like. To give you my personal opinion, this figure is actually a Grail figure of mine, so I'm really glad to get my hands on it. It does even look better in person, so yeah, it's a great figure. Moving on to the next box, which happens to be a pair of boxes, I have a feeling that this pair is going to be the hardest one to guess. So since that's the case, I'm going to present them together. So here are the clues. I'll give you points for guessing the franchise, but bonus points if you can guess the figures. Clue number 1, these figures are both cast off, which is something I didn't know before purchasing them. Clue number 2, these characters come from an acclaimed visual novel that was translated in English in August 2021, 11 years after its original release. And clue number 3, these characters are both second and third generation weapons that take on the form of robotic insects, or mech-like samurai armor. Bonus clue, there are no heroes. So who are these figures? Well, the two characters in this round are the second and third generation Muramasa from the visual novel Full Metal Daemon Muramasa. These figures are known as Nisei Muramasa and Sensei Muramasa. So let's get these figures out. Okay, a lot to go over. First off, they're cast-offs, which allows me to strip them. This being my first pair of cast-off figures, they're actually pretty good. Too bad I actually won't be able to use the ability. Summarizing Sensei Muramasa, she looks just like the character in the game. Her outfit's really well done. I really love the amount of detail that's in the rope around her waist. I love the color of the skin tone and the shading of the dress. It's just perfect. And the pose is okay, and it maps to the source material, but it doesn't really get me excited. Overall, she's a good figure. Now moving over to Nisei Muramasa, her outfit seems like there's less detail compared to Sensei Muramasa, especially with the ribbon around her waist. The paint detail is not as refined as Sensei Muramasa as well. Where Nisei Muramasa shines is her smug face and the pose. That really sold me on this figure. But like Sensei Muramasa, overall, Nisei Muramasa is just a good figure. That being said, these figures standing alone are just alright figures, but having them stand side by side, that really increases their attractiveness, because they match very well next to each other. So here is a MiHoYo box. This kinda gives it away. But let's jump into it. Here are my new clues. Clue number 1. This figure is done by the Chinese manufacturer Mythos. Clue number 2. This character has her Herrscher figure coming out in December 2021. And clue number 3. This character is also known as the Lightning Empress. If you guessed May Raiden, you're right. Raiden is a character from the game Honkai Impact, which is a game I do play often. So let's get her set up and go over her. Let's start with the sculpt. There's some good and some bad. First off, overall, I love the dress and the hair. I think where it gets messy is the thrills and the strings on her chest. They're okay, but they could have been done much cleaner. That being said, the strings intertwine, and I can imagine that being difficult if you had to mass produce this correctly with complexity. Another thing that brought the sculpt down for me is the lace on the gloves and the stocking. They just seem half done and not as clean as I would like them. The paint is good. It has somewhat of a watercolor feeling to it. I think if they put more attention to the painting of the lace on the gloves and the stocking, it would have really elevated this figure. The pose is cute, and it fits the figure well. The base is large and glossy. I can see where they were going with it, but overall, I think it's just an okay base. Ultimately, I think Honkai Impact fans would appreciate this figure, and I'm one of them, and I'm actually glad that I have this figure in my collection. Moving on to the next box, and more clues. Clue number 1. this figure is manufactured by the same company that publishes the game that the character's in. Clue number 2, this character is wearing her Flame Sakitama battle armor. And clue number 3, many people mistaking the Shrine Maiden as a bunny girl, when in reality, she's a fox girl. So who is this? As you can see, this figure is Yae Sakura from the game Honkai Impact. Let's get her set up. I'm super excited to see how she looks. This figure is perfect in my eyes. The sculpt is perfect, there's so much detail in each piece. The painting is well done, and there's a good use of matte, glossy, and metallic paint. It is very, very clean. I just love the pose, and the base. The base is just awesome. It suits the character perfectly, and it just adds that little extra detail, and yet is so simple. Overall, this figure is everything I wanted it to be, and maybe I'm biased, since this is my second Yae Sakura figure. But I have to say, given how great this figure looks, I'm sad not to see that more people have it in their collection. This leads me to the next box. This box is big. So, what are the clues? Clue number 1. This figure allows you to swap out her bandaged arm with a giant claw. Clue number 2. After this character's brother was killed by her brother-in-law, this character goes on a mission for revenge. And clue number 3. This character uses her claw to feed on demons. So there you have it. This large box belongs to Velvet Crow, who's from the game Tales of Berseria. This box is huge, so let's unpack it and get it set up. I love this figure. The sculpt is so well done and there's so many little details. The hair is a stringy mess which looks amazing, and the outfit has so many buckles, chains, and tattered clothing coming off of it. There's so much going on, I find it very hard to find a spot where I can actually pick her up. The paint is perfect, the pose is perfect, and I love that I can switch between her bandaged arm and her demon claw. The base is okay, nothing special about it. And I did find that their hair support was a bit annoying to set up. I think they could have done a better job here. But other than that, given how amazing the figure is, you can completely ignore the base. Overall, this character is one of my coolest figures. There's so much going on, which just makes it so interesting to look at. She definitely gets an A+ in my book. Now if you thought the last box was big, this box is monstrous, especially for one figure. On top of that, this is the last box to open. So let's go over the last clues. Clue number 1, this figure is based on our 3rd Ascension artwork. Clue number 2, the character known as Bluebeard was obsessed over this character, claiming that she was his salvation. And clue number 3, this character has a thing for flags. So who is this? Well, as you can see from the giant box, it's Joan d'Arc from Fate Grand Order. Let's get this masterpiece together and we can talk over it. First off, I want to say, putting this figure together was scary. I already read that putting on the flagpole was difficult, and that many people thought they were going to break it, so I was holding my breath the whole time. But now that she's all together, wow. I love the outfit, and how the armor looks, and how the flag looks. I love it all. The paint is spot on too, it's exactly what I would expect. The pose is great, very iconic for the character. And the base, well, is a base, neither good or bad. I am glad they actually gave it a matte finish to match the paint on the figure. The flag support also works well and gets the job done. As for my personal opinion, this figure is amazing. I love the armor, I love the loose hair, I love the pose, I love the massive flag. Everything about this figure is awesome. This figure has sparked me to pre-order the Avenger version, which is being re-released next September. But man, that is so far away. But it would be amazing to have these two figures side by side. Anyway, this figure is one of my favorites from this haul. Overall, I'm just really in love with this figure. There, we did it, we're done. I feel like I've aged 10 years by just making this video. Now let's take a walk down memory lane. This all started with 12 boxes. And what did we end up with? Well, 12 boxes. Well, that's not right. Let's try this again. Here are all the figures that we unboxed in this haul. So let me know in the comments, were you able to guess all the figures? Also, which figures were the hardest to guess? And which figures were your favorite? And with that being said, I hope that you found this video entertaining, and I hope you all have a great day.